Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us today at the CEED side event on deployment of super efficient appliances for cooling and heating. We want to advance the conversations on efficient appliances for cooling and the COP26 product efficiency call to action progress. And this event is organized by the CEED initiative, which is both a joint clean energy ministerial initiative and an energy efficiency hub task group. And it is hosted by the International Energy Agency. I would like to hand over now to Mrs. Paula Pinho, Director at the Director General for Energy at the European Commission, to deliver some opening remarks.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here, for dedicating your attention early in the morning to this very important topic. We thought usually there was a division of tasks, right? The Gulf states, India, towards Asia, we would be speaking about cooling, and Europe would be speaking about heating. Well, this is changing, right? And as we see temperatures in the mid 40 degrees, 45 in Spain, in Italy, this really wakes us up also in Europe to the importance of cooling in general and to energy efficiency. Needless to say, yesterday we had some sessions on energy efficiency and as a crucial element to really deliver on the Paris 1.5 degrees objective. And there is an increasing support to doubling our efforts on energy efficiency, as it's illustrated by scenarios from the IEA, from IRENA, and also from our side in the European Union, so much so that we're now very much promoting also a global pledge on energy efficiency to really gather support behind this and to put and to gather momentum on the need to seize the potential of energy efficiency, which is huge, which is very often a very low-hanging fruit and often really not seized. But as we today focus on product and product in energy efficiency policies, these are really key in delivering the potential of energy efficiency as a whole. And it's really amongst the most cost-effective policies with low investment levels, which can be made by governments in general, but even also by the individual consumers. And as products are globally traded, some countries have higher requirements than others when we look at the standards, for instance. So clearly, a structured cooperation among all is in the interest of everyone if we want to have a more ambitious product policy deployed and more ambitious and faster. So during COP26, we had the UK, we had the IEA launching the product efficiency call to action, and it focuses on 4 key globally traded products. One, which comes really handy as we are here today, air conditioners, of course, lighting, industrial motor systems, and refrigerator freezers, which all together, and one wouldn't think so, represent 40% of global electricity consumption. It's really huge, only if you look at 4 products. And this product efficiency call to action aims to set countries on a trajectory to double the efficiency of these products specifically by 2030. And it's with that in mind that the call to action counts on the support of the IEA and in particular of this CEED initiative, which aim at deploying most effective policies to accelerate the transition to super efficient appliances. And today's session is focusing on the cooling appliances, which, as said, is now becoming more and more of a need across the globe as we see climate change in action with all its consequences. And it's really the fastest growing end use, the cooling appliances. To put it in perspective, the demand for energy to power space cooling has more than tripled between 1990 and 2016. This means it's outpaced other building-related energy use. So really to be kept in mind. And according to the IEA analysis that Cornelia knows best, the growing use of cooling worldwide will be one of the primary drivers of global electricity demand growth in the coming decades. So it's really important to have, we like to call it the holistic approach, meaning we need to look not just at the appliance as such, but we need to, in order to tackle the cooling problem, we need to work simultaneously on all possible measures and impacts, on sufficiency, on the building design, on rethinking the whole building environment to limit the cooling needs from the outset, in particular in cities, and really to develop more sustainable alternatives to traditional air conditioners, working both on the energy use, on the fugitive emissions of high GWP refrigerants to the atmosphere, and so really tackling the whole system and not just the appliance as such. So, in any case, if we don't revisit the efficiency standards, by 2050, the global energy demand from cooling is expected to triple. So I just said it tripled from 1990 to 2016, and if we continue at this pace, it will triple again by 2050, which is of course driven by increased penetration of air conditioners in countries with warm climates where less than 10% of the population has presently access to it. And again, to put it into perspective, the number of air conditioners in buildings worldwide will soar to 5.6 billion by 2050, compared from 1.6 billion today. It's huge. So you really can see the need and the potential to tackle these products. And I was very struck by this figure. This means 10 new air conditioners sold every second for the next 30 years. So if we can withhold this, it's really striking. So again, this highlights the potential, the huge potential gains that can be reached through doubling the cooling product efficiency, and we need to start immediately, and therefore this discussion today is extremely welcome, and a plea to all of you present here to really be also the ambassadors of this pledge, and to communicate not just the potential but also the challenge that comes with the need for cooling and the need to tackle it as of today and now. Thank you very much. And
thank you very much, Paula, for these powerful opening remarks on the importance of sustainable cooling and the need to double energy efficiency as soon as possible and by 2030. We are now also joined by Mr. Apay Bakre, Director General of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and I would also like to kindly ask him to deliver opening remarks highlighting the role of India in the SEED initiative and product efficiency call to action. Good morning, Mr. Bakre.
Good morning, and thank you very much. My apologies for joining late. As being an organizer, we always have so many things to cover up. Yeah. So what Paula says very clearly that the kind of growth we are expecting in this thing. So let me first thank for this side event, which is actually on a topic which a few times I mentioned that it should not lead to something like a hard-to-abate sector after 10 years. We just negotiated hard-to-abate sector yesterday in G20, and those were the sectors which perhaps got developed last 50 years, 60 years, and after 50 years we realized these are the sectors: steel, cement, chemicals. Now at this stage, they are becoming hard-to-abate sectors. We don't want by 2050, as Paula just now mentioned, numbers which are going, that in 2040 we will suddenly realize now cooling is a hard-to-abate sector. Not that we will not be in a position to manage the power from the renewables. the kind of challenges which I'll just come to that. So cooling and the doubling the efficiency or the super efficient blade, why they are all needed. And in fact, that's where we have gathered here, and one of the key message which we are trying to give as part of the SEED initiative and overall the clean energy platform is how to actually, I can't say stop, but how to actually regulate, how to optimize the use of appliances in such a manner that the impact of consumption doesn't lead to a major challenge to the supply side. Now that's the key, if I can say. When we are talking about 3 times, 4 times growth by 2050, the country like India, let me tell you, it's expected 8 times growth even by 2040. So can you imagine the kind of this thing? Now, it's not that the manufacturers will not be in a position to produce. Yes, they will produce, there is a demand. It's not that the consumers will not purchase. Yes, they can always afford the new air conditioners. They will purchase it, their aspirations, their standards of living. But what will happen to the entire power system? What will happen to the entire distribution system? What will happen to the complete ecosystem of your managing the power metering, their cabling, everything? Everything will go up by 3-4 times. Are we in a position to do that? Can we rebuild the infrastructure for power and utilities every 20 years? Again, can we double it? Now that's the challenge. Steel sector, cement sector, when the steel plants grew, it was set up in an isolated location where you can manage the primary supply. But these air conditioners are not being set up at a particular location. We are not talking about a particular colony where all the air conditioners are coming. They are all coming from each and every house. So can you strengthen your power cabling, the complete metering, everything, every 20 years? Yes, there will be some kind of rehabilitation happening. But the fact remains that it's really challenging for the power utilities to set up so many new plants just to cater for the air conditioning, because the most important thing, in most of the countries, including India, the air conditioning load is actually deciding the peak load. Now this is the question. So whatever additional demand, we are in a position to reduce it or even optimize it, that's straightway affecting the investment in the power system from the power plant, whether it's a wind or solar or whatever. It's also affecting the complete infrastructure, which right from the high tension power line to the substations and everything. So instead of addressing many more challenges, we are actually leading to a new challenge, which we are just talking today and we are trying to find a solution, but that can be a bigger challenge by 2040 or beyond, or by 2050. And now that's the message which we want to carry from here, that unless we are ready from now onwards, the good thing is that these are not the technology lock-ins, fortunately. So air conditioners in India, I think the average consumer is able to replace in every 5 to 7 years. Maybe institutional consumers, they replace early, but the household, they replace in 7, 8 years. So it's a good thing. You can always change the technology. Unlike power plant or steel plant, where once it is set up, you have to only change after 25 years, 30 years. So that's the advantage. But the disadvantage is that every new colonies, every new townships, every new institutions, every new hospitality, hotels or restaurants, they will start buying new air conditioners with a higher capacity. And if we don't use the super efficient appliances, and that's the initiative here, we are actually getting into a really, really big challenge, which as of now we can just foresee, but we are not able to realize. And at least the last thing is that those planners or those policymakers who are talking about the power demand growth, including all kinds of power plants or supply side, they are actually not at all aware that this kind of growth is actually likely to happen in next 2 decades. We believe everywhere the energy efficiency is reducing the demand, fine. But actually the kind of growth we are expecting. And as Paolo mentioned very clearly, the countries which are actually on the cusp of exploding in terms of cooling, they are going to be the potential areas where opportunity exists, but if we don't contain this kind of demand, we are actually running into a very huge power demand by 2040 and beyond. So once again, it's pleasure to meet you all of here and very eager to listen to the experts. How can we really tackle this, this massive problem which will come after 2 years? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bakri, for highlighting the importance of super efficient products and potential implications also for our electricity grids and the need to manage demand appropriately. That's very, very important points. Paula and Mr. Bakri, we are very happy to have you here and also as members of our SEED leadership team. So thank you very much for joining us. With this, we will just jump right into the first discussion where we want to look into the country-specific efforts on cooling, and we have heard both from our remarkable opening speeches and also in the events yesterday during the Clean Energy Ministerial about the critical importance of affordable and sustainable cooling solutions. Technologies are there. There is still challenges regarding the purchase price of cooling products, sometimes which lead to not always the uptake of the best available technologies. And what we really need is ambitious targets to foster the large-scale deployment of those efficient cooling products and also a rethinking of the policy frameworks that we have in place, of the business models and other financing mechanisms that are available and that support the uptake of those cooling systems. So to kickstart the conversation today, I would want to ask all the panelists what, in their views, the most effective policies are that are in place in their respective countries, and also what else can be done, what can be done more to improve. And I would like to start the discussion with our host, Mr. Bakri, to give us some insights into India's policy environment. What do you think works best for cooling solutions?
So if we really talk about the cooling solutions, I think the challenge which we can have it is the attracting consumers in a way that they are going towards the high efficiency appliances. Now we have analyzed in 2-3 category of consumers. The institutional consumers, the cooling solutions, they can always pick up the high-end solutions for that. I think most of you are aware about the cooling reward. That is, it was a part of Mission Innovation where the Department of Science and Technology, RMI and BE, we had a challenge. We had 4 finalists. I think most of you are aware. They are in the process of getting the super efficient appliance. So that is one category where we can actually aim for very high or super efficient appliances going to the institutional consumers. So maybe it could be something around 5 to 10% of total year-on-year demand. The next category comes something around 30 to 40%, where it is high efficient, not exactly super efficient, but actually these solutions can be used where the utilization is very high. It could be like cold chain industry, it could be like hotels, or it could be especially the restaurants or institutions, where they need not go the very high end, but the next high level, and where the cost is little higher, but the payback is also attractive. The third category is the common household, where the utilization is less. So these solutions are being developed, and we should encourage the designers to come out with these kind of categories, because the process of deploying the cooling solutions, and especially the high efficiency, it will be gradually. So we need to keep on replacing. We need to also keep an eye on how the replace market is happening. So we are even talking about some kind of a scrapping policy, something like a buyback policy. If someone has just completed 5 years of air conditioner, we can just offer him a new air conditioner getting replaced the old one. So that kind of a scrapping policy. So in a growing market like India, These kind of solutions are really helping. So these business models will actually drive, and there will be a better growth for the high efficient appliance. I think that's the, thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting the critical importance of policy focus on the consumer, on the end user, and also the need to apply systems thinking. So thinking about the replacement of systems and scrappage policies and recycling, I would like to add. Now turning over to Mr. Vinay Chawla from the US Department of State. From the US perspective, what are the most effective policies in place in your view, and what else could be done?
Thank you, an honor to be on this panel. I would know, just listening to the opening remarks and Mr. Bakri's remarks, that for each country, both the climate journey and how you address it is quite unique, and then specifically on how you deal with appliances is quite unique. I take the point that for India, given its amazing and fast growth, which could potentially make it to be the largest economy in the world by 2050, the idea of the impact on power systems is a major driver, and that is one to be very cautious and how you approach the challenge. I think for us in the United States, it hasn't necessarily been the driver, especially in this administration. And if we think about appliances and standards and how you implement them on an accelerated basis, our driver has really been around emissions. And so I think there's a bit of a virtuous cycle that I think has worked for the United States. And it's part and parcel, I think, of what a lot of other countries do. One is sort of the high-level commitment you have from heads of state, and that this administration made more recently, but builds on 50 years of work around energy efficiency, cooling efficiency that our Department of Energy leads. And for our country, the work over the last 50 years, that focusing on sort of the emission side, then also on the cost-saving sides, which is very important for our constituencies. From 1987 to 2030, we'll have a savings based on standards works that DOE has done that'll amount to $2 trillion. As an aside, 1987 for me feels like yesterday, but that actually represents 33 years of time that's lapsed and to generate that kind of a savings. And I think when we think about the virtuous cycle, you have this sort of high-level impact that a head of state can make, and he or she can set that for various ministries to go then implement. For us, it's our Department of Energy. It's a very diligent work that we do around stakeholder engagement. I think that becomes very important in terms of adoption. It also creates a tension about how quickly you move, but for us, that's important, especially like India, sort of a federated country, if you will, with local and state actors. I would say then the legislation and the sequencing of essentially what is carrots and sticks also becomes important when we think about appliances and standards. And one is to create the legislation that allows for the financial support of more efficient cooling appliances, as an example, to be able to happen. And in this administration, that's the Inflation Reduction Act and the tax and rebates that it offers on the commercial side, the money that it creates for R&D that DOE then can deploy with various states, which becomes an important way of testing what you do in the commercial aspects. And then I would say for us, what's been, at least it works in the United States, what's made climate an issue that people have adopted, and then when you think about appliances, is really making it a climate justice issue. So for a lot of the money that we have available, and of course the United States has a lot of resources available to it, it's still very targeted at certain communities. So when we've had major heat waves, last year the administration's allocated in the middle of a heat wave $400 million through Department of Energy and a federal program to go to the state level to help with electricity bills, to buy new HVAC units. The tax rebates and credits in the IRA targets communities based on income level, and that also becomes an important way of creating adoption. So I would note that, and I would note that as we look forward, I think an initiative like SEED becomes very critical. My own boss, Rick Duke, who's Secretary Kerry's deputy, was in the Obama administration when SEED was launched and was an important part, and from that we've seen India's leading work on LED lights. But when I think about even our own future and we look about appliances, I think there's a lot of technology cooperation, diversifying the supply chain, where SEED can play an important part. If we think about the best compressors in the world, in the future they may not come in fact, they may come from India, where some of the best compressor technologies for air conditioners are probably being developed today. And they may be for heat pumps that may not be as of strong use in India, but could be a very great use in the United States. So I think SEED can play a very leading role in that. So the work that we do for each of our countries has become even more. We often talk about globalization sort of as an old story, but I think in this space has a real opportunity to help us diversify supply chains and improve our standards, our appliances across each of our countries. So that's what I would point to as what's worked in the United States, specifically focusing on, I think, the climate justice component of adoption around appliances.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights. Climate justice is definitely a very important point to mention. And also the high-level leadership driving progress and the more comprehensive approach with a lot of programs supporting the progress in country. Now I would like to hand over to Meg and George. You present both the UK government and also the breakthrough agenda. Would you like to share some views on the most effective policy measures in place in the cooling sector?
Yep. Hi. So I think what we've heard today is that cooling is exceptionally important, especially in industry and also for our sort of general well-being in sort of domestic workspaces as well. But we know it is an extremely high greenhouse gas emitter. It's extremely energy intensive. So I think the first sort of policy should be really around mitigation, increasing the use of insulation, shading, and of course increased energy efficiency. However, obviously this is not always going to be a one-stop solution fix. So we do need to go further. In the UK, we have got building codes and annual reporting against climate change agreement targets for large commercial buildings, so things like factories, supermarkets, and have found that this has been a really effective way of mitigating emissions and reducing energy consumption for these large-scale buildings. On a smaller scale, the focus is more on refrigeration than air conditioning, though in the UK things are getting warmer, and so air conditioning will become more and more important as time goes on. But with these smaller settings, increased efficiency of devices and refrigeration devices in particular is going to be a really accessible way for end users to tackle energy use. In terms of sort of like what more can be done, I agree with what Mr. Bakri said earlier about encouraging consumer behaviours, and a really large part of that is improving consumer information and knowledge so that they can make the best decisions possible. And for example, with air conditioning units, we know that the more efficient ones may have a high upfront cost. However, the cost that the consumer will have on their energy bills over time will offset this. So we need to develop ways so that consumers can rationalise that increased upfront cost. So a bit of work that the UK has been doing is looking at behavioural insights into energy labelling and efficiency, and we're going to be using that to help guide policy going forward.
Thank you very much for these wonderful insights. I would like to turn to Paula again. Would you like to share your insights on where the EU stands at the moment?
Thank you. And in the European Union, it's pretty much complementary to what has already been said. And if I may divide it indeed in the combination of measures, of policy measures that we've been enacting to tackle the issue of cooling. So it's first of all, as I mentioned before, standards, right? So this is absolutely key, and we have standards for cooling already for 20 years. And combined with labels, so addressing what Mr. Bakri said, and Megan on the issue of information. So it's not enough to have standards which promote efficient products if that information is not translated and if consumers do not have access to it. So then the labels are extremely important. And as we go, as we develop, as technologies develop, as products develop, of course we need to revisit the standards, and we need to revisit the labels. So in the EU we have the traditionally A to G labels, A being the top efficient products and G the worst. And then we make it very clear for the consumer when he's buying what type of appliance he's buying. And now we also have a product database which is having a lot of success, being rolled out in the EU, the so-called April, which means you go to a shop, you scan the QR code, and you have immediately access to information on the energy use of each product, and you can really compare in the cost of the product, but also the efficiency of the product and how much it will allow you to save eventually. So these are two very important policy measures, standards and the labeling. And also then, of course, the incentives part, so the subsidies. So in the EU, what we've been doing is that we've been linking subsidies to the most efficient products. And we're saying, yes, ready to subsidize, including with public money, but this is limited to the products on the top scale in terms of efficiency. Another very powerful instrument is public procurement. So what public authorities purchase, there we have the so-called green public procurement, and we are favoring top class products. And of course, given the size of public authorities in general, this is of course a very powerful measure. And then we have the so-called taxonomy regulation, which aims at determining what are economic activities which are environmentally sustainable, and there again giving a signal that whatever falls under this taxonomy is interesting also in terms of investment and of support by financial institutions. So it's really a combination of policies and measures that we're putting forward, and of course also legislation, as we are discussing, for instance, as we speak, we are discussing within the European Union the legislation on performance of buildings, and there also we are increasing the minimum energy performance requirements of buildings, and again translated into very clear labels, so that there is information. And this information is not just good for the consumers, it's also good in terms of investment and where to put the money in terms of investments, be it in a building, in real estate, be it also in products.
Thank you very much for very, very clearly highlighting the need for a mix of different policy measures, starting from regulatory elements like minimum energy performance standards to information measures like the labeling for both cooling appliances but also for buildings, and further measures like incentives, and I haven't heard about capacity building initiatives yet, but maybe that's another addition to mention here. Last but not least, I would like to give the floor to Sneha Sachar, Associate Director and Cooling Lead at the ClimateWorks Foundation, to share her insights into accelerating sustainable cooling solutions.
Good morning, everyone. So my job becomes very easy, or maybe very hard, because most of what I was going to say has already been said by the experts that I'm sharing this panel with. But I will share my perspectives, and if it's okay, I'll bring in a slightly global view rather than speaking about a specific country because of the nature of my work. So to your question about what are some of the most effective policies, in my experience, again, looking at various countries, in terms of appliance cooling efficiency, I think we can all agree the most effective policy measures have been standards and labeling and the minimum energy performance standards. Really, those are the guts of what's moving the market. I think I don't need to explain for folks in this room what those are, but just very briefly, standards really validate for the consumers that the product that they're looking to buy is superior energy performing product, and minimum energy performance standards really set the minimum threshold underneath which the appliances cannot legally be sold in the market. So essentially, they eliminate the least efficient performing appliances from the market, gradually raising the floor. So these are fairly prevalent. I think there's roughly 80 plus countries that currently have standards and labeling programs in place. However, the effectiveness of these measures, these policy measures, varies broadly across different countries, depending upon various aspects. Both these policy measures are complementary. They go hand in hand. I think some things in my observation that have enhanced their effectiveness is when these policy measures are combined with complementary market instruments. That's when the effectiveness can really enhance. So I'm starting to get a little bit into what more can be done here. So I think one is, again, complementary market mechanisms, which can really increase the effectiveness. One example that comes to mind is in China, they combined their labeling program with financial incentives for the top 2 tiers. And that effectively really eliminated the bottom 3 tiers from the market in roughly a period of around 5 years or so. And that led to the government then eliminating the bottom 3 and really raising the floor by roughly 70% or so. That's just one example that comes to mind. Another point on what more can be done, I'll pick up on what you said, Megan, about passive cooling. I think before we even start to look into efficient appliances, the foundations of our built environment have to be correct. So let's right-size the need for these cooling appliances. To Mr. Bakre's point about the significant grid impacts, but I think building the buildings right is where we want to start. And for a country like India, where we still have a lot of new building infrastructure coming in place, this is a great opportunity to lock in long-term efficiencies and right-size the need for cooling appliances. Then another policy measure that comes to mind, and again, India is a country that's taken leadership there, is slightly broader, but the development of national cooling action plans. What they start to then do is to bring in a more coordinated focus rather than one-off policy measures. And they also bring in an opportunity to harmonize different aspects. For example, bringing in refrigerant into the appliance efficiency dialogue. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you very much for these thoughts. Sorry. I would like to use the remaining time on this panel to ask each of you for your key takeaways from what you've heard from other panelists and where you think would be the biggest focus in how we move forward. What should we be focusing on? Mr. Bakre, let me start with you.
Yeah, thank you. The policies which we have been implementing and they have the potential in coming 2 decades. But something we can do even better, for example, which from Indian side, and we have tried to analyze, that the standards, as Paula mentioned, we can try to harmonize the standards. Now the time has come that we can't have different designs, different technologies being used in different countries. Let's globalize the cooling solutions itself. Whether it is happening in terms of exchange of technology, exchange of, as mentioned by that, the kinds of compressors which are being manufactured in particular country. So if at government level or at the policy makers, we are able to standardize the global sale or deployment of cooling solutions, then it will benefit not only the consumers, but also the suppliers and the manufacturers. So the manufacturers can, for example, can come out with the kinds of models and designs which are globally accepted. So they can scale up their production, that will bring down their cost, that will help the consumers to purchase them. So globalizing the standards, harmonizing the labeling framework, that will actually scale up the deployment of super efficient supply, and that will actually help contribute what we are thinking to optimize our demand. So this is one area where, and of course, I also echo that passive design also can play a very important role. Again, there also the international cooperation can help. So these are the two areas where we can work in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Globalizing cooling solutions, harmonizing standards, and looking at passive cooling, very important points also mentioned by a number of panelists here. Mr. Chawla, what are your key messages?
Thank you. A great session, a lot to learn and a lot to chew on. I would agree that standardization globally is one area where we could be focused on. I'm also left with some questions. It seems that in hearing the panelists, when it comes to the incentive side or how we change consumer behavior, that often we have local politics or how our constituents work that is actually different. So trying to apply one solution may not work. The idea I think we heard around encouraging consumer behavior through labeling could be one, sharing more information, but that doesn't necessarily lead to the same level of adoption. I think for us, two tensions, as I mentioned, are focused on the income levels of our constituents, and then also a lot of our enforcements, buildings-wise, et cetera, is very much done at the local level. So then how do you change sort of the consumer behavior? And I'm still left with an open question, and when I think about, and I'm not sure this is as applicable in the United States, but when I think about SEED and how we could work on super efficient appliances, I also wonder about the secondary market, because even if we're able to change consumer behavior and pick up adoption of more efficient cooling appliances, that means that there's a secondary market where less efficient fans and less efficient ACs will move to. And some of our countries have to worry about that. And so how do we help each other in that solution? So very much a lot to chew on, see some common areas, but also left with some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Consumer behavior focus is definitely of great importance, and secondary markets too. Megan.
Yeah, so I think what we've heard today is that the scale of the problem is massive, and it's not a problem that sort of any one country can tackle alone. And so I think this is where a program like the Breakthrough Agenda, which for those of you who aren't aware, is a commitment for countries to work together internationally to make clean technology affordable, available, and accessible to all. And so just really picking up on the point that was made earlier about designing buildings and making sure that they are more energy efficient. And just to sort of give a little bit of a plug more than anything, is that we've got a buildings breakthrough that has been launched by France and the Kingdom of Morocco. And this aims to make near zero emission and resilient buildings the new normal by 2030. And I think there's a lot of the stuff that has been discussed today that could be sort of use and incorporated into that piece of work as well.
Thank you very much. The focus on buildings and passive cooling solutions is definitely a great one. Paula, turning to you, what are your key takeaways?
I think I will agree with what has been said. And the beauty of the products, they're global, right? And when we're tackling these challenges related to climate change, related to energy transition, sometimes, and it's not minor, we need to really take into consideration the specificities of the regions, of the countries we're talking about. Here we're talking about products which are globally, can be globally deployed. And the language we can use with these labels, if we have the efficiency label from A to G or whatever scale you want, this is a universal language, can be understood by anyone, anywhere across the world. So really, let's seize that potential. And as it was said, it is a benefit for the consumer, it's a benefit for the suppliers who do not need to adjust to every local consumer, every national country, so to say. So there's a huge potential, and that's really also the beauty of this forum, where we are discussing how can we cooperate internationally. So really, let's use this potential. And then just to pick up on a point by Sneha on the refrigerants, which I didn't mention. So this is still something that we can tackle. In the EU, we are tackling it because we know that the global warming potential of refrigerants is big. So we're also looking into that to make sure that we have, again, more efficient refrigerants which are used in air conditioners, but also in heat pumps.
Thank you very much for highlighting the power of collaboration and harmonization and information as well. And that was a perfect segue also to Sneha, if you want to share some key thoughts.
So also echoing, on the power of collaboration, where applicable at a global level and where applicable at a regional level, I think there can be efficiencies to be gained from some shared knowledge and shared resources. One point I want to add is, while policy has its key role undoubtedly, I think also very important is few levers that are very important, business models. What can be done in parallel with the policy measures to spur customer demand and also to catalyze the supply ecosystem. In my humble view, feel policy alone cannot move the needle at the speed and scale that we currently need. So I think very important to focus on complementary business models. And a shining example that we've all heard of already that comes to mind is the LED story in India, where we are currently in conversations with the ESL, also trying to collaborate on something similar for super efficient ceiling fan deployment in India. So more to come on that. But I think there is really room for exploring some innovative models where the incremental cost of efficient products can be tackled while the market reaches economies of scale. Other lever that comes to mind is public procurement. So again, combining our policy measures with effective public procurement strategies can, again, catalyze the market for these products. And I think I echo what other panelists have said about, again, the passive measures being an important foundation for this dialogue as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much also for mentioning the critical role of innovative business models and financing instruments and financing models needed to support the large-scale deployment of efficient products. We will now have a quick change in the setup of the panel. Thank you so much for all the panelists for this insightful discussion. I would ask Megan and Vinay to stay with me here on the panel. Paula, Sneha, Mr. Bakri, thank you very much for your contributions. And I would ask also Mr. Kishore Kumar to join me on the panel. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for staying with us. After this brief switch in the setup, we want to jump straight into a bigger focus on the progress for the product efficiency call to action. We have here on the panel, again, Megan George and Vinay Chawla. We have also Kishore Kumar, representing updates from class, and I will give a brief overview of the recent advancements in this and what the progress is.
Yeah, Absolutely. So as Paola mentioned in her introductory remarks, the call to action was launched at COP26 in Glasgow by the UK and IEA through SEED. And it calls for the doubling of energy efficiency products by 2030 across 4 key products to help reach our net zero goals, but also to help reduce consumer energy bills. And so the 4 technologies that it covers is refrigeration, air conditioning, motors, and lighting. At COP26, the call to action was signed by the UK and 13 others, but we're delighted that 6 more countries have joined the call to action since then, bringing the grand total up to 20. The call to action was launched through the UK COP Presidency Energy Transition Campaign, and was a really key aspect of that campaign, with energy efficiency being described as the first fuel. The campaign and energy efficiency in general remains really important to the UK, especially in the current context of increased energy bills. Our Secretary of State often says that energy security and net zero are 2 sides of the same coin. And so through addressing energy efficiency, we are tackling both sides of that coin at the same time. So it is a really, really important piece of work for us. With this current status, we see it has been making really good progress. I'll just cover a couple of the bits of work that have been done. First of all, SEED's working with member countries to produce 2030 call to action roadmaps on a national basis, and really excellent progress has been made on a regional level through the Latin American pathways. There's also been some more sort of analytical work that's been done through SEED sourcing, collating, analysing market data on efficiency and cost of different products, and that information is being used to help policymakers make effective decisions. Work has also been going on from a UK basis as well. We've been doing some policy research and development on a number of products, specifically refrigeration and lighting.
Thank you so much for this overview of the call to action. And with that, I would like to move to Mr. Kishore Kumar. Can you tell us from the CLASP experience and research what progress has been made towards the product efficiency call to actions? And what are the most efficient policy measures and most effective that can be used to move?
Sure. So first of all, hi everyone, and great honor to be on the panel, and thanks to all my panelists here. So I have come up with a couple of slides on this where we can see all the progress and where are the signatories, we're achieving the doubling the efficiencies, and what are the countries who are falling behind. So I'll just quickly share that slide deck.
Will we please bring the slides up?
So maybe just a quick overview. Of course, Megan has already given enough background on this, but I think as a CLASP for the last 3-4 months, we've been tracking all the 15 signatories in terms of the standards and the market efficiency, where they fall. And of course, it was quite extensive research, I would say, to get on all these numbers and the data on this. And of course, we find very interesting interventions and results with all this analysis. So just moving on, as a first statement, it's a bit hard to digest, but this is a fact. Most of the signatories are not on track for meeting the doubling the efficiency goals. So for actually, the reason being, there are multiple reasons, but I'll just show you all the analysis step by step. So for this analysis, what we have done is we did our work in 2 aspects. First is on the standard, second is on the product efficiency which is available in the market. The baseline we consider as the year 2021, and of course what is the efficiency, the standards improvement after 2021 also we have tracked that. And if you see in terms of the standards, since 2021, few signatories have updated the standards, and few actually have doubled it, few are on track. If you see as per the appliances wise, for refrigerator, of course, there is no much of track, like no signatories have done anything after this. And on the ACs, one of the signatories like on the track to on meeting the doubling. And I think on the motor, we saw very interesting and promising results, because like 4 signatories are on track and one country like almost meeting this doubling the efficiency targets. And on the lighting part, yes, there is 1 signatory which is double the efficiencies. So this is like a quick summary about the standards, what all these countries have done for the last 2 years. And moving on the efficiency of the market, if you see, to answer this question, of course, it sounds simple, but there was a very extensive research about the data, especially on the products which are available in the market. And for all these 50 signatories, we have to rely so much on the government data and also secondary research and the research papers as well. So on this area, I would say only refrigerators are showing progress, because you have a standards, but on the ground, those efficient technologies or values has to be there. So I think refrigerators are showing very good promising results, and for the ACs and the motors, there is no progress, I would say, or like inconsistent to some extent in terms of the progress. And for the lighting has been a bit challenge in terms of the data, because availability of the data is one of the biggest concern in few of the economies. So we're expecting a progress in the next couple of months, because we've been doing a work with Minamata Convention on mercury, so we're expecting some more data on that part. So that's about like where we stand. So this slide gives you more detailed information about each and every product. Where are the countries falling in terms of currently and where they are till 2030. And of course, the common metric that we use is energy use index. So as 2021 is our baseline and 2030 is like our target year. And dotted lines is something is doubling trajectory, I would say. And in this, you can see 2 countries actually come up with a update on the standards. This is like a progress on the standards. And they don't have information or they don't have any regulations till 2030. There's an update in only 2023, but I think after that there are no such updates or no such norms or standards available. And if you see even in the refrigerator case, there is only like 10 to 15% improvement since the baseline. So that's a little disheartening to see for the refrigerators case. And for the air conditioners, I think this has been a bit interesting. Multiple countries actually have done a couple of updates in terms of the standards. And the improvement you can see, like few have done for 10-15% and few even done for 25%. And one country actually even done almost close to 40%. That is still 2030. But I would say they're not close to meeting the doubling the efficiency target. So that's on the air conditioner. And next is about the motors. I think motor is, it's a very interesting case, because in motors, the baseline few of the countries is where like they don't have efficiency norms for, So in that case, they're like, even if they have a IE2 or IE3, it's still significant as a good improvement. In that case, few countries actually, whenever they came up with this policy, they met the doubling efficiency targets, and also some countries actually have defined few stringent commitment for meeting this doubling for the motors. I have seen it. And for the lighting, there is only 1 signatory or 1 country actually is meeting the target so far on the standards part. So this is like a quick overview about all 4 appliances and progress, and what are the signatories are meeting the doubling and where they are on track. And of course, we are not talking about the countries who didn't do anything about for the last 2-3 years. Yeah. And moving on the market data, especially on the energy consumption reduction, I would say. So for the refrigerators, you can see on the market is been like progressing the data, especially on the consumption side, it's coming down. So it's a good sign for the refrigerators. But for the AC and motors, it's been inconsistent. There is no decline of the consumption, and efficiency improvement is very minimal, I would say. Because like in the policies which are there, I think at the ground, it's taking time to get implemented, or it's take time for the market to adopt all of those technologies. On the lighting, I think we have a challenge with the data. So I would say maybe on the lighting for the next couple of months, we will get a better information on this part. Moving on, we just maybe quickly touch upon the methodology that we adopted for doing this. Especially we rely on the public data available. Of course, we have a CLASP depository where we have so much of reports, and also we have a policy compliance tools, resources which have a database of almost 14 countries, and all the effective measures which has been taken, information is there. We have taken that as one of the source. And we've been also researched on the papers and few IEA reports also. And we relied even on the government's websites where the data is available. And one interesting thing is, like, of course, we have like all these countries, and products are different, metrics are different. So we adopted that energy use index for measuring the progress of all these products, I would say. Finally, on the analysis limitation, so for all this analysis, for 4 different technologies, we focused on specific product where is majority representation, like residential air conditioner is like a split type is mostly used. In the lighting, the residential screw bulb is another one which is mostly used. And again, in the refrigerator cum freezer is like mostly used. So we focused on all these majority of the products which represents the market. And of course, in the motors, electric motors, the 3-phase induction motor is like represents the analysis. And of course, the table you see, it's about the information that we collected from all these countries.
That much remains to be done to improve and double the energy efficiency of those 4 key product types, particularly air conditioning and industrial electric motor systems. But thank you very much for all your work in tracking this progress. With this, I would also want to give a few updates about the IEA's work and the SEED initiative's work. And I would ask to please put up the next presentation. Thank you very much. I will just briefly give an overview of the work that we are doing within the SEED initiative to track progress towards the product efficiency call to action. Sorry. So we developed a performance ladder approach within the SEED initiative as a visual representation of the progress to increase energy efficiency of selected products. You can see it here on the screen. So in this ladder, each step defines the policy performance requirements. We have on the bottom minimum energy performance standards, then defined label thresholds for different types of labels and future aspirational targets, and at the top of it would be high energy performance standards that promote the sales of really the highest performing products. And as policies move up the ladder with a higher level of ambition, that means the energy performance improves. And ideally, the steps are used by different policy tools in a coordinated way and revised over time. And I will explain in the next slide a little bit how this works. So here you can see, I'm sorry for my voice, the performance ladder for minimum energy performance standard. And I picked only, very sorry for that, I picked only industrial electric motors here as a display, and we focused here on Latin American countries. So as I said, we have used the ladder approach to describe progress of countries within the call to action. And when it comes to minimum energy performance standards for industrial electric motors, most of the Latin American countries that participate in the call to action are adhering already now, you see on the left side, 2022, to the IE3 standard, which allows some level of regional harmonization and also alignment with international standards, as countries like the US or China are also applying these standards. At least all countries in Latin America have at least IE2 standard, which means high efficiency. And all of the countries base their regulations on IEC standards, which also contributes to the regional harmonizations. And also, based on our analysis and country feedback, most of the countries have the institutional capacities in place to design, to revise, and also to implement the minimum energy performance standards for motors, which is another very important component in the implementation of those standards. Now, we would propose as a suggested minimum energy performance standard level by 2025 for all the countries that are already at IE3 level to move to IE4 level, also aligned with developments in China and the US, and Chile to reach the IE3 level. This is an intermediate step, so looking at 2030, the end of this decade, we would suggest a convergence of the minimum energy performance standards levels at IE4, which is the premium efficiency of industrial electric motors. And in both steps, so overall in the development, as we also had heard from the previous panel, a focus on the replacement of old inefficient motors is of great importance. So this can be done through scrappage policies and other incentives. And I also wanted to show quickly here, the air conditioner purchase price and energy efficiency in different markets. So data collection is another big important area of the SEED initiative. We wanted to gain market insights on the efficiency distribution of new products for sale and price versus efficiency. So we have run a crowdsourcing data collection in different markets. One was for the ASEAN market, one was in Latin America, and also in Sub-Saharan Africa. Here I show the results of our ASEAN market data collection. And what we can see here is the results of the purchase price and efficiency in 4 different markets, namely in Thailand, in Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And the highlighted band in yellow that you see is the average price of all the products sold in the market. And what we can briefly see from those results, that in 3 markets, namely in Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines, consumers are able to purchase more efficient ACs. You see on the x-axis the efficiency rating, so moving towards the right. Consumers are able to purchase more efficient ACs at lower prices than the average band of products sold. In Vietnam, consumers generally need to pay more to purchase more efficient ACs, but when we apply a life cycle view of this analysis, then the picture shifts, and in all markets, consumers benefit from lower costs of the more efficient products. That was my brief overview. Can we go back to the backup slide? So thank you very much. I think we have a few minutes maybe to open the floor to a few questions from the audience.
Thanks, Kishore. I have one question. In your opening slide, you mentioned that in terms of progress, when it comes to refrigerators, perhaps none of the countries are on track. Whereas in one of the subsequent slides, when you were showing the energy efficiency trends, it appeared that some of the countries are following the target trajectory. And I was just wondering if I have misunderstood it, or is there anything hidden? Thanks.
Yeah. Can I respond? Thanks, Pramod. So I think, so when efficiency levels are defined, or they improved only for a couple of years, just like 2 years, 3 years. And that improvement that done is only for 10-15%. But to reach the target, they have to do for 50% improvement. So few countries have done improvement only for 10%, but for the other years, they did not do anything. So that was the reason we said it's not on the track. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Satish Kumar from AEEE. And I think in this session and in the previous session, a lot of focus on MEPS and S&L. And one question or suggestion that I have is, we all know the importance of MEPS and Standards and Labeling Program. In terms of their evolution and in terms of what can be done to perhaps fast track the time period that it takes, and also to provide real-time and real performance feedback to the consumers. So this is an idea where there are lots of advancements in sensor and power monitoring technologies. And we know that countries like India and other global south countries always struggle on the test labs infrastructure, and there are gaming and other things, whether products are really delivering the performance that they are claiming. So can there be something on that you try to embed sensors and meters or sub-metering, because they are getting miniaturized and other things, which can provide the real-time feedback to people who are using. So for room air conditioners, power monitoring is pretty simple. I mean, in $2 or $3, you can install and it can give. There are smart plugs and other things. The challenge is on the cooling capacity, how much cooling is getting delivered. But there are technologies. And I think when we talk about like developing the next generation of standards, so rather than just focusing on, I think, how best the compressor can improve or what are the test methods, if we can start to pivot a little bit and say that this dynamic feedback to consumers is going to be really important. And what can the manufacturers do to actually advance this technology? Because I think there is a real potential. It can change consumer behavior. It can introduce competition. It can take out this real world versus test lab performance. There are many things that can perhaps be addressed. So I just wanted to make that point. And if anyone has any suggestions on this.
Yeah, maybe I can have just a quick reaction to it. It's a great point, and I really appreciate that you brought this up. And I just learned like a few of the manufacturers, started even utilizing the artificial intelligence in the appliances. For example, like in the washing machine. This is like something, revolutionary, you can say, where, they try to understand the consumer behavior and try to use this same settings for the next cycle. So that's kind of a revolutionary is possible in the technologies, looking at the current R&D we have in the country. And also to, add one of the point here, which is missing, I would say, from all the signatories. What I've learned is, I think these standards till 2030s are missing. They are like available only for the next couple of years. But if the standards are defined for the next 7 years, till 2030, then that kind of directions are helpful to the manufacturer to go towards doubling the efficiency. That is another way we have to, or the policy may have to focus at this moment. And further, what I've learned is in terms of pushing these innovations, policy's always been like a front end. And obviously, incentives like PLI scheme, which Government of India is giving on the air conditioners and also on the lighting, if they can also, try to help give it for the other appliances, like other two appliances, like refrigerators and the motors which are in the days. This may also help not only localizing this, production, also pushing the innovations, I would say. So these like quick thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for highlighting the role of digitalization, which next to energy efficiency, electrification, will be key for the clean energy transition. We had one more question here.
Hi, this is Akash. I'm with AEEE. I wish to two questions. The first is, in the previous panel, I think Sneha and a few others, they kind of obliquely touched upon harmonization. So I want to ask, particularly from CLASP and IEA's experience, when you're sort of surveying the policies in various countries, particularly in cooling appliances, do you see harmonization in labeling, right? Wherein we bring together refrigerants and energy efficiency, and perhaps bringing them to a common denominator, which could be emissions, right? So moving away from energy labeling towards emissions labeling, or sometimes called eco-labeling. So that's one. The second is, I think there was a lot of emphasis in the previous panel on nudging consumer behavior. Are there any advancements or innovations happening in, say, label design, or the way information is disseminated to a consumer at the point of purchase, to kind of encourage them to move towards a more efficient appliance? So two connected questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me briefly start and then hand over to Kishore and maybe other panelists if they want to jump in. So on the regional harmonization of particularly minimum energy performance standards, that is being followed across several regions. The European Union is one of the well-known examples, but we also see, for instance, in Western Africa, in the ECOWAS region, a move to regionalize and to harmonize minimum energy performance standards for key products to ensure a minimum efficiency level in the regional market, to avoid a dumping of inefficient and obsolete appliances on the local markets, and to also give an impetus to local manufacturing about where to focus their manufacturing capacities. So yes, there are a lot of initiatives in that regard. Also in the ASEAN region, there is a lot of work on the regional harmonization. And I would hand over to Kishore.
Yeah, thanks. So great questions, and I'm happy like you have touched upon those. So on the regional harmonization, of course, we don't have policymakers here, but I can happy to respond on that part. Especially in India, if you see like whatever the products which are done or manufactured in India are being exported to South Asian countries. Like even inefficient products are exported to the South Asian countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, and they all come to government regulators in India and saying like we need to harmonize those standard labeling program. So I think that discussion has opened, I would say like for the last 1 year, and it's in discussion stage. But I think to move further on this part, they need a cabinet approval within the governments. So it's a time-taking process. It's underway, but yes, government is very much focused on that. And they see it's a mutual benefit for India and also for the South Asian countries, because if whatever the program India have, if the other countries can say the manufacturer can import only minimum 3-star rated product, not less than that. So that's where the regulations can be harmonized, and even the South Asian countries are very much happy to do that also. That's on the harmonization part. And second, on the consumer behavior thing, I totally echo you. It's like so much has been done in terms of consumer behavior or in creating the awareness on using the 5-star rated appliances or higher rating appliances. So from the government side, there is another initiative has also been taken up. Recently, BE has launched 4 new appliances under labeling program, like pedestal fan, table fan, and side-by-side refrigerator and induction hob. It's an e-cooking thing. So on the labels, they started putting information about the emissions also, CO2 emissions. And I know that's something where, when consumers start looking at the label, they also understand what kind of emissions or the quantity of the emissions of this appliance are being going to release if they use, lower star rated product. So that's one of our other triggering point, government is trying to focus, I would say that's interesting. And also on the refrigerant thing, it is, right now it is a bit complicated in terms of the interministerial. They're like MOFCC, they're MOP, Ministry of Power, and BE. So that's one thing. And they don't want, right now the manufacturer reaction is they don't want so many regulators on the one product. Because refrigerants are handled by MOFCC, and if some other like Ministry of Power or BE, like if they come into place, it's their domain. It's MOFCC domain. So I think that's where it's get complicated. But you're very much right. If pushing for a higher efficient, refrigerants, it's definitely going to be a game changer, I would say. At least if you start putting the low global warming potential refrigerant information on the label, I think that motivates manufacturer to go for that, policy regulations, I would say.
Thank you very much. We're almost wrapping up the panel. Megan, if you want to share one quick thought on the behavioral aspects.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the UK has done some behavioural insights work on energy labelling. However, I think, and I can't speak for other countries, but this is something that will need to be done on a country-by-country, region-by-region basis. If you want to incite behaviour change, you have to tackle the consumer's capability to make that decision, the opportunities they have to make the decision, and the motivation for that. And the motivation is probably going to be the bit that varies by region, by country, and especially the social norms around it. So I think even though there will be common threads around the world, that is a piece of work that probably has to be done on a more sort of like basis by basis level.
Thank you very much for adding these important thoughts. I will have to close this panel, and I would like to thank all of the panelists and ask Mr. Vinay Chawla to give some closing remarks to wrap up this session.
Sure, thank you. And I'll keep this relatively short, partly being a layman to the sector, and also just some thoughts for discussion maybe on the margins as we finish the session. I think what struck me, interestingly enough, in listening to all of this is that there's a clear passion, aspiration, and commitment from policymakers to want to seek higher efficiency, to make commitments, and things like call to action and breakthrough challenges allow us to do that as countries. But that there is partly a gap here in trying to meet, in terms of what the class report or the analysis shows, these higher standards. The positive news is really around the minimum energy performance standards and seeing great progress there. But really, it's not policymakers necessarily that are holding back, or our own desire, these commitments that class was outlining around efficiency and meeting those. And a lot of that, I think, is where we can focus our work, and some areas that, frankly, we can't, when it's interministerial challenges that each country has to sort of figure out. Or for us, it's a lot of local constituencies, and enforcement happens at the state and local level, and new codes for buildings come there. And so it's not really something a national government can do at a central level except encourage some of that work. I would note what strikes me, having spent some time in the private sector, and Sneha mentioned this, is about the importance of business models. And really, there was a question here about more efficient devices that could be inserted in air conditioners, or you mentioned laundry machines. We're talking about a radically different product. Those are not even the ACs that are on market in terms of what you're adding. And you're creating a new product category. And to make that cost competitive takes a lot of emphasis and investment in R&D and something we can share in something like SEED, and I think one where we're focused in our Department of Energy on how we do R&D on efficiency and new product and new technology, but I think all our countries could probably do more of. Then is coming up with the right business models. For a lot of these companies, even sometimes seeing procurement by central governments is not a very efficient process, though we all make commitments to do that. Once you buy these appliances, having them installed, ordering them on a consistent basis. So one is to set the policy, as you mentioned, for 7 to 8 years, but then is also to procure on a standard basis so that these companies can respond. So I think still a lot of work to be done there on business models, and I think how we can help and sort of not only at the commercial side, but then at the last retail side is still work for us to do. And similarly on demand side management, which ultimately for a lot of growth markets, whether you're dealing with the grid or other aspects, if we as partners inside of SEED can help on demand side management, so you can manage the grid and ultimately have a positive impact on where the emissions trajectory is going, I think is also a huge area. So learned a lot, still left with a lot of questions, and look forward to SEED helping resolve a lot of those.
Thank you so much for these closing remarks. I would like to thank all the panelists for their great contributions. Thank you in the audience very much for your attention during this session. Would you like to give me a hand literally in thanking our panelists for their great contribution?
TP, which would be followed by panel discussions of some of the actors involved in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. But first of all, we will start with a keynote by Ms. Rosalinde van der Vlies, who's the Vice Chair of the Steering Committee of the Mission Innovation and Director at the European Commission for Clean Planet Actions, I believe. Yes, so please help me welcome Rosalinde.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. I hope that you're all doing fine and that you have been recovering from a jet lag. I see that today the room is not yet very crowded, but I hope that there will be some additional people joining us while we are waking up to, at least for my morning, was a rain-free morning, so that was quite amazing. So I'm really pleased to be here with you this morning in the beautiful Goa, and I would like to give you a quick introduction of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, and also, and in particular, the relevance for mission innovation. But before I do that, I would like to start a bit by giving the context of the collaboration that we have on research and development in the European Union. Because in the European Union, collaboration is basically in our DNA, and we are very proud that we have a very huge European publicly funded program for research and development called Horizon Europe. And in total, we will be investing 95.5 billion euros in research and innovation solutions for the period 2021 to 2027. And there are three key principles of Horizon Europe that are really guiding our collaboration on research and innovation. The first principle is that we are impact focused and that we are translating this impact focus in our collaboration with the private sector. Because as European Commission, we find it extremely important to collaborate with the private sector, to co-invest in innovative solutions with the private sector, and to also define common priorities for research and innovation. So we have an instrument which we call Horizon Europe Partnerships, where we are in various sectors collaborating with the private sector. And you can really see, it depends a bit on the sector, but some of these partnerships have really a huge leverage effect. For instance, we have a partnership with the shipping industry. The European Commission is putting 500 million euros into this partnership with the shipping industry, and the shipping industry is bringing 3.3 billion euros to the same partnership. So this is really, okay, it's really our success story. This is the biggest leverage effect we have in terms of our public-private collaborations. But it's just showing the importance for us as a public administration to collaborate with the private sector. The second novelty and importance of our Horizon Europe program is that we also foster collaborations with the national administrations. Because for us it's very important that we align the research and innovation agendas of the European Union with the research and innovation agendas of the member states. And again, we have also a specific partnership tool where we can partner up with the national administrations to define common research and innovation priorities. And there the Clean Energy Transition Partnership is the success story of a public-private partnership. And we open our public-public collaborations also to other countries in the world, because the Horizon Europe program is our tool to facilitate international collaboration. And our international collaboration for research and innovation, we have a strategy for this, which we call the Global Approach to Research and Innovation, which was adopted by our College of Commissioners in 2022. And we really want to foster this international collaboration on research and development, because we do believe that this is actually crucial to accelerate clean energy transitions. And we really want to partner up with countries who have shared values and principles. And one of the key guiding principles for our international collaboration also is reciprocity. So to zoom in now on the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, Today, I think this is a very important tool to foster collaboration for public administrations to co-invest in research and development to accelerate clean energy transitions. So this partnership will really enable both national and regional research technology development programs and managers to define common research innovation priorities, to pool national budgets together, and also to make sure that we then implement this through joint calls, where in the end, of course, the national organizations will benefit from the national budgets. So it's really a very important tool to bring together the different budgets and to make sure that we can really collaborate internationally and invest together. So at this moment, we are very happy that although the Clean Energy Transition Partnership is rooted in Horizon Europe, we have brought together already 32 countries across the globe that are pooling the budgets into this tool, including the US, UK, Canada, and Switzerland. And my key message to you today is first of all a call to other national program managers and regional program managers to check out the opportunities that the Clean Energy Transition Partnership is bringing and to join the future activities of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. At the moment, we have a common budget of around 800 million euros, out of which 200 million euros is provided by the European Union. But we really think it is such an important tool for collaboration. And we really hope to increase this common budget at least up to 1 billion. So this is a common challenge to all of you in this room and beyond this room as well, to convince your regional and national administrations to look into the opportunities of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership and to join it and to help us reach this 1 billion threshold. So I'm really happy that we have launched the first joint call of 2022, where we have commitments of almost 140 million euros in clean energy transitions. We are in the process of finalizing the drafting of the call for this year. And I'm very pleased to see that in the 2023 joint call, there is a very close collaboration with one of the missions of Mission Innovation, the Green Powered Future Mission, and there will be a specific joint call that will be opened in September between the Clean Energy Transition Partnership and the Green Powered Future Mission. So this is also, I think, an inspiration for other missions of Mission Innovation to check out the opportunities to use this tool, to use the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, to pull together national budgets and to define common topics of strategic relevance for research innovation. And I think in particular, the other partnerships of Mission Innovation looking into carbon dioxide removal, net zero industries, clean hydrogen, I think the priorities of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership fully fits also with these missions. So I think that would be really a unique opportunity for collaboration. So to conclude, international collaboration on clean energy transition is obviously crucial if we want to achieve our objectives, our climate objectives, but also collaboration on research and development is important to avoid duplications, to learn from each other, to accelerate this learning, because we have no time to waste. I think it's very clear that we need to accelerate, and we can only do this through fostering collaborations. And of course, collaborations can be accelerated by joint investments. So that's why I think it will be important to foster these joint investments. So a call on all of you, check out the opportunities of the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Let's make this really a global tool for pooling budgets, for defining joint priorities, and to power the clean energy revolution together. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful event and very inspirational exchanges. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Rosalinde. I know you are very busy, so you will run on to the next event. So thank you very much for your keynote. For the next part, I will also give a short introduction to the CTP. Rosalinde has given a very well rounded introduction as well. As she mentioned, in the daily common language, we call it the CETP, which stands for the Clean Energy Transition Partnership. Our initiative is a transnational initiative for clean energy. The CETP enables more than 50 partners from around the globe, from more than 30 different countries, both mainly European, but also non-European, as mentioned by Rosalinde. We can also say that in addition to the US, Canada, this year we will also have participants from India, and we will have participants from Tunisia joining our joint call for the 2023, which will be launched in September. There's already information now on our webpage about the call, which we will also get more into later. As you can see here, the partnership is more than 50 plus funding partners. Not every funding partner takes part every year. Not every funding partner takes part in every call module that we have in our joint calls, but they select themselves which call modules they want to take part in, depending on their priorities and national budgets for the years. Last year, as Rosalinde mentioned, we had more than 140 million euros in our budget that was then topped up by funding from the European Commission as well. Yes, so the way that the partnership works is that we have divided our work into 7 TRIs, as we call this, which is transition initiatives, where you can see them here. These 7 transition initiatives are the main working groups from where we develop the calls. These are also, in these TIs, you can, the funding organization and funding partners have the possibility to take part, so they can help form the calls depending on their own priorities. These 7 TIs are then supported by 6 different coordination bodies, where call management, where I'm from, every year helps develop these call modules. Then we also have something that is very unique to the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, which is the knowledge community, which is a community for everybody who works in the clean energy transition and who wants to take part in sharing knowledge and receiving knowledge and so on. This community is not only for the funding organizations, it's not only for the projects that are applying for our joint calls, it's for everybody who wants to take part and wants to share their ideas and their knowledge to promote the clean energy transition. This community is going to be worldwide. Every year we are going to have annual conferences that will bring people together to do this. Yes, so at the moment, the Clean Energy Transition Partnership's main goal is to help support the EU goals of making it the first climate neutral continent by 2050. This is, of course, our main target as the European countries, but we also would like other countries worldwide to take part in this. So it's not only a European dream, but it's a worldwide dream. Yes, and as Rosalinde mentioned, we are doing this by pulling together national and regional funding. Most of the countries that take part are taking part by the national funding, but some of the local regional funders are also taking part. For instance, we have multiple partners from Spain taking part in our partnership. I think it's around 6 different Spanish partners, so there's multiple regions also taking part. The way it works is for the joint calls that we are demanding that there's at least 3 different partners from 3 different countries. So it works like this. So you can see funding agency A, funding agency B, and C. And why we are demanding this in our joint calls is to make sure that we have the international aspects in the joint calls. Otherwise, it could just have been national funding schemes instead of the partnership. So where do we come from? Because we are not something that just started out of the blue, as you might imagine. We actually are built on 9 previous ERANETs, which is smaller versions of the partnership that was more sectorial based. So we had some of on solar, we had some of urban development and so on. But now we have pooled our efforts together in this partnership. So we are making larger calls, we are getting more funding organizations involved, and we are making the whole process easier for the applicants to apply for funding. This is a one-stop shop and not a 9-shop stop. So the joint calls are based, as mentioned, in the 7 TRIs. Each TRI has the opportunity to develop their own call modules. This year we are having one that is developed with the focus on the mission innovation. And next year we hope to expand this so multiple of our TRIs are looking into this option. This year we are gonna have 11 call modules. As you can see here, we have a short timeline where we are gonna launch the call in September 2023, and then we are gonna close it in November 2023 for the first step. The way we are doing this is a 2-step procedure with a pre-proposal and then a full proposal. There will be a lot of information events. As you can see, we have already had a few in the previous months. We are gonna have an info day on the 13th of September, a week before the actual call opens. So this is some of our funding agencies we have at the moment. It has quite a few. As you can see, there's some countries there are multiple funding agencies. These might be regional or local funding agencies. You also have from the Netherlands, for instance, you have 2 funding organizations, one that is primarily focused on research development and one that is primarily focused on innovation development. I think, yes. So as mentioned, it's a 2-step procedure where we allow the funding organizations to develop their own requirements as well. So you as national funders can set your own determinations. Some funding organizations have the rule that there need to be at least 1 business partner and at least 1 research partner from your country to take part. Yes. And then these are the 11 call modules that we are working with this year. As you can see on all of the text, we are currently in a draft mode, as Rosalinda also mentioned, that we are currently finishing up the last parts of the call text for this year. But we have 12 call modules this year. 2 of them are A and B, and this is because they have different TRL levels. So there's different call module specific requirements which is developed by the TIs. This could be difference in the TI level, there could be demands for business or industry partners in the proposals and so on. This is developed by the TIs, so if you want to have influence over this, you have to take part in the TI meetings and so on as well when the call modules are developed. Yes, and you can already now go into our webpage and see most of the information about the joint call 2023. Again, it is of course in draft mode still. If you as a funding organization potentially would like to take part in this, you can also see some of the information here. I know we said that we are launching the call in September, so the 20th of September is the official launch. Up until then, we hopefully can still take more funding organizations in. Otherwise, this is a partnership that will take place for multiple years, so there's always next year and the year after. Yes. So now for our panel discussions, I would like to welcome our panelists. First, from the CTP partnership, from the TRI2, Francesco Basile. please welcome him to the stage. And from the Commission, Matthias Schode. And from the DOE, Mark Aukvich. And last but not least, Katja Holman from Business Finland. Yes. Now.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you for traveling here to Goa to be with us today. I know it has for some of you been quite a travel, and yeah, so welcome. I would like to start by giving you all 2 minutes to talk a little bit about why you are part of the CTP, what is your work in the CTP. I know some of you are from different agencies, so I know Francesco is a bit more involved in the daily work, so yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jacob, for this occasion to speak on the Clean Energy Transition Partnership in the Mission Innovation and Clean Energy Ministerial event. Okay, I'm leading in the Clean Energy Transition Partnership the TRI-2, which is the enhanced power production technology from renewables. And the TRI-2 is quite a large initiatives. Last year we financed 14 projects in the 2022 call, which is almost 1/3 of the overall clean energy transition projects. I think it's very important to be here because we have, since I'm also in the executive committee of the Mission Innovation Green Power Future Mission, we were working together with our colleagues from Mission Innovation, that is led by Italy, to develop a call module that is actually starting from the priorities of the Mission Innovation. So it's actually planned inside Mission Innovation. It is completely overlapping with what they call the flagship project 2, which is related to the transnational cooperation among different countries. You know, Mission Innovation is based on national actions that are mainly put together and coordinated, but there is no actual cooperation in the projects. So I think Clean Energy Transition Partnership could be a unique opportunity for Mission Innovation, starting from their priorities to work together and actually to develop together the technology and the solution we need for our clean futures.
Thank you, Francesco. And then Katja, if your hand, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Katja Holmen from Business Finland. Business Finland is a governmental funding agency that is involved both in Mission Innovation as well as CETP. And now that we've gone through the first round of CETP, I've had the pleasure of working both in TRI-6 and Working Group 6, but then also in close collaboration with companies and research organizations that are actually applying for funding. And that is something that I would really like to point out is that it's vital to think about the participants, the applicants, because they are the ones doing the work. They are the ones, they actually have the projects. They are actually making the world cleaner and a bit better. And of course, hopefully, they also make some money out of it. Because as we all know, that is the thing, making money out of it is the best way to get the companies involved in solving these global challenges that we have. And what we would like to see is having more partners get involved in CETP. One of the main reasons, or I think the most important reason for us, is that our customers, meaning the ones applying for funding, actually want for that and have been asking for that. They would like to collaborate with more different countries and get wider networks and be able to collaborate with more partners. And then, of course, getting more countries involved brings the potential of global scalability better. And then, of course, we have these wicked problems that we have to find solutions to. So the more we have thinkers, the more likely we are to find solutions. So I really hope that we get more partners on board.
Yes, thank you. Mark?
Yes, thanks. You know, we're kind of one of the non-European perspectives, and I'll share a little bit on our engagement and activities to date. We actually started during the Aranet process. We have a lot of bilateral engagements and agreements with various countries, and it was always coming down to how do we fund partners in those countries. It's not always easy to align mechanisms for funding to facilitate that joint collaboration. So we were approached by some of our partners that were taking part in the Aeronets, particularly the ACT, the Accelerating CCS Technologies, because that's where my expertise and our team's focus is on the carbon management side. And so we were approached, and one of the questions that we always got from our research community is, you know, how can we collaborate? How can, you know, DOE help fund some of that work? So we were approached by some of our colleagues, and we said, you know, we think this actually can be a mechanism for us to engage. So that kind of got us started, and you know, as the Aeronets you know, moved on and it's shifted to CETP, that's kind of, you know, how we've expanded into our work within CETP. But just broadly, CETP aligns quite well with our organization's activities because of that focus on research and innovation. At the heart of DOE, we are a research-oriented organization, so I think there's quite a lot of alignment between what CETP is focused on and then what our goals and objectives are within our organization as well. So we saw a lot of alignment between CETP and the work that we're doing. I think thinking about, you know, opportunities within the missions themselves, I'm also the director for the CDR mission. Interestingly, that mission probably has the least amount of European partnership in it. The European Commission is a member, but broadly speaking, those that actually are more engaged in CETP, it's actually quite less. So it is something that we have talked about, though, within the mission. So overall, I think just to sum it up, just a lot of alignment with U.S. Department of Energy goals and objectives and just the flexibility of the mechanism itself.
Thank you. Matthias, do you want to follow up on Rosalinda's speech?
Yeah, maybe. I have double hat as well. European Commission, we are supporting indeed the collaboration between national funding mechanisms, and we have been involved in already, as you were saying, the Aeronets, and now indeed the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, the COVENT Action. I'm also director for the Clean Hydrogen Mission and the Mission Innovation. And I wanted to start there. When I was asked 2 years ago to lead the Clean Hydrogen Mission, I had a chat with the chair of Mission Innovation, Patrick Childs. And he was saying, the aim is that you are building partnerships, that you are bringing people together, and Mission Innovation is an opportunity to build globally new partnerships. Bring companies from India, from the United States, together with European researchers, or the other way around. But I think that's important to build new partnerships. That's also why we are here, every time to meet new people and to think as well, what can we do together? And I think that's something very important. That's one. Two, Mission Innovation, our challenge is to push for research and innovation. It is important for the future, for tomorrow, but also for the day after tomorrow. we need new technologies, new knowledge on the long term. And I think that's something we have to invest even more in research innovation to make it work. And my call anyway for you, go home, talk in the ministries, I'm not sure where, but if you are with the industry, talk as well with your industries. Is there more budget available for research innovation? But also make it possible to work together outside our own country. I think that's also a basic thing here. And we have to facilitate that, and I think the Clean Energy Transition Partnership is a very good tool for that, to really make it happen, to have these projects together. That's a bit my vision, yeah?
Thank you. Yes, this whole thing about pooling together our funding and then some in the European getting a top-up fund. So how do you, now we have two funding organizations with us, how do you see this as an opportunity to both keep your national ideas? I know you have some specific national requirements, but still taking part in these international cooperations. Why is it important for you to take part in these? And then in this partnership, why is it also good that you can still keep your national requirements? Because you have a focus on the business side from Business Finland. I know from the DOE you have a lot of focus on the laboratory, your laboratories, national laboratories. How do you see this complementing each other?
Thank you. So, well, first of all, why we want to participate and why we want to collaborate is that obviously Finland is like tiny country, and we need to collaborate. We cannot just stay in our safe bubble there. We have to see the world and be active. So that's why we are really happy to participate in different kinds of things like that. And we see that it has been working out really well, I think, in CETP, that we still have our own rules, because, well, there are obviously some things that we can fund and some things we cannot fund. So I think it has worked out quite well that we have our own own set of rules. For example, like really basic things. We cannot fund an organization or a company that hasn't paid their taxes. These kinds of things. So basic things, but I think it's really important that we get to keep those.
Yeah, thanks. So I think I'll hit upon the requirements part of it. As a funding agency, I really like the flexibility that it provided, that you still had the national requirements and it, that it still had that autonomy where if it didn't align, then it wouldn't go forward. So I think that was really important for us. And it also helped us think about what sort of mechanisms and flexibility that we can utilize to have our research community engage. So as you mentioned, our national lab system, and that's been our primary mechanism. And the reason is because it was one of the easiest mechanisms for us to utilize as part of our engagement. And I think the importance of the engagement has been, for us at the department, is being able to leverage funding, collaborate, utilize resources that are elsewhere, and have some of our resource capabilities also open as well. Because when we're looking at a lot of these, the TRIs and and they're spanning all scope of the clean energy and climate spectrum, I think it's really important to have those mechanisms be available to the research community, be able to leverage the facilities that might be available, so we can kind of share and move forward on common goals and challenges.
Yes, thank you. So Francesco, now from a TII perspective, now you have been working a lot with the mission innovation and trying to incorporate them in one of the calls this year. Do you foresee that the calls that CETP is going to develop over the next couple of years, that they will integrate more with the missions innovation? And if so, how?
I think in terms of planning, we have done the most, because the call development that we have done is based on the priorities of the mission innovation. I coordinate personally a task force inside Mission Innovation Green Power Future Mission, together with all the countries participating in the mission, which had, starting from their 50 priorities of the first 5 years, we select 20 by pool, so by making voting all the countries that participate. And then among those, we clusterize the most significant one to make the call. And what we finally define in the call is actually a power future mission. So it's actually a very general and I think clear on the point, because it's related to renewable energy production, power production, storage, system integration, and the market integration and the data system and management. All those with two perspectives: resilience and flexibility. And I think this is the 2 points we can really learn each other, because we will face different scenarios in different parts of the world in terms of mixing of renewable energy, and developing projects in different countries with this perspective. We will learn also for our perspective how to manage the scenario that we are actually don't know what will be in 2030. And I think this is a win-win perspective. So we get together, learn each other, experiment each other, technology and the flexibility, start from flexibility by design of the solutions to actually face the unknown that we are not yet able to foresee in details. And that in terms of flexibility, it's really a challenge from the supply side, but also from the demand side. And experimenting it in different parts of the world will really get us the information we need for the future.
Yes, thank you. Matthias, from the Commission side, we have seen over the last couple of years a development where there has been some sort of competition between maybe the European continent and then the US and then with other areas of the world as well. How come that the Commission is taking a position now on the Clean Energy Transition Partnership to do more cooperation? Because, yeah, it's maybe a very political question, but I see...
Need a diplomatic answer? No, it's always difficult. But why are we here? Because we have a global challenge. And I said it yesterday already in a panel as well. Look, the climate change, global heating, we need to change the energy system, but also the industry. We're talking about decarbonization of the industry. We are here because we all have this common challenge. And of course, there is a bit of competition between the industries and even academia. University professor A, B, and C, they are in fierce competition to have as many publications and to be on the top. But by collaboration, we can be more effective. And I think that's something which we have to keep in mind. Also, from the European Commission perspective, collaboration is needed, because what we need is a system approach which is not a national one in one country. We are developing products, we're going far, which are cross-border. Look, ships, if you're going to change, where do they have to bunker? If we are going to do very new systems, the products are exporting. Look, we had this morning already discussion about the fueling systems of cars. We have the mobile phones about the plug-in. I think it's important to work together on this transition as such. And it starts with research and collaboration. And there's another anecdote as well. I think working together in the research fields is really making bridges as well between countries. We all know we try to work together, but we try to develop our own economies. But at the other hand, you know, we have to work together. Think as well about the supply chain. whenever you develop something, a simple product, maybe all the different components are coming from 10 different countries. So it's another example of why we should do it together.
Yes, thank you. That was, yeah. So for the funding agencies, now that you see this cooperation and now you are two funding agencies that's very much involved in the mission innovations, do you hope that, or would you like to see that our core modules in the coming years are developing more together with the mission innovations? And if so, you are planning to take part in the CTP for the coming years? And the development of the core modules? Is it something that you're going to have a focus on as well?
So, we have had these conversations in the CDR mission, and we were launched maybe a year and a half ago. Yes, we were launched in November 2021, so a little less than 2 years. So that first year, we were actually spending most of our time on our planning activities, really trying to align what is it that the mission was going to do. Now that we're kind of moving into an action phase, we're starting to have these conversations about, okay, what are some of the mechanisms that we could potentially use to collaborate? What are utilizing the mechanism, and that we can actually kind of share some of those learnings with the missions, particularly with those partners who are not familiar with CETP, and just be upfront about what are the benefits, what are some of the challenges that they've seen, so that we can make sure that those are being addressed. What are the concerns of the partners within those particular missions, just to have that dialogue and communication, I think. But I think having some of these data points from missions already doing this, I think that's helpful for the other missions to think about.
I totally agree. So basically, I think there is a lot of need for discussions back and forth between mission innovation and CETP partnership. And I think the most important thing is here that we're here to figure out solutions to these wicked problems, and that's where we just have to discuss what are the sort of most important ones to come up with solutions to. So I think there is help in having discussion between those and finding the right questions to get the answers to those.
Yes, thank you. I think we will open it up to the floor now. So if anybody has any questions about the CTP or anything. Yes, we have a question down here. If you can please state your name and where you're from and who you're addressing. Thank you.
Very good morning to all. This is Abhishek Gupta. I represent Energy Efficiency Services Limited. We are an organization under the Ministry of Power, Government of India. And we do a lot of stuff related to energy efficiency related interventions in India as of now. My question to panel is that whether CETP be doing funding for energy efficiency related projects as well, apart from the clean energy?
Okay, we have 7 TRIs. Really, you can see 3 are energy production, so heating and cooling, power, hydrogen and fuel. And the other 3 are integration with the energy system in the industry or in the built environment. In those 3, especially in the industry and in the built environment, you can find also subjects related to efficiency and to, of course, also related to renewables, integration, but also related to efficiency. And so that could be a place where you can actually look if there is something interested. And of course, participating to the call to the TRI, you are also able to actually affect the direction and the call module definition. So if you are interested in some specific issues and I'm sure there are other European countries that is do it. You can propose, and this could be part of the call module. And so you can also go to your minister and just finance what you need from that module and say, I'm interested in that module, and in national requirement, I will need to finance only people and projects that relate to the energy efficiency. So you can see it's a very flexible and adaptable also to your requirements. So please, of course, we need to study a specific solution, but there is space for it.
Yes, thank you. Then we have a question here.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Kapil Narula. I work for the Climate Champions team and work for the Breakthrough Agenda. Earlier, I was with the University of Geneva, so I'm familiar with the ecosystem of partnerships. And we're also facing the same challenges when we try and build up partnerships. And CET partnership is really coming in as a breath of fresh air. What I wanted to propose is that can we have some global platform where all of these partnerships come on, and at least for reporting, because there are regional organizations which are coming together and working together. There are national agencies coming in and offering funding. But most of it is, for example, if I would not have come in here, I would not have known about CETP. So that's the challenge, that it's very regional, sometimes national, and the dissemination of such partnerships is not freely available or publicly available on a common platform. So what are your suggestions or possible solutions to such a common problem?
We are here. We are telling it now. So this is maybe the solution. And to speak with each other about it. To make awareness. We are opening up the CVP. I'm very happy that they took this initiative. And yeah, maybe we have to promote it even more on the international fora. It's not an easy process, huh? Let me be very clear on that. But there is a reason why we would like to do it, and I think that's indeed to make researchers, industries work together. And before the CT partnership, we had the small ones, the demo wind. There was a slide from you, Ocean Aeronet. When you go to the projects which have been funded by these smaller initiatives, these projects and the participants in the project were very happy to be able to work together. And that's what we have to keep in mind. What are we doing to make these collaborations happen? And yeah, we are open to talk with new ones. But it's also sometimes, what is the R&I policy in a country? Do we have an R&I vision? Are we open enough even to work internationally together? Do we like to promote it in our own countries? And there's a way to go in some of these countries. But it's also with mission innovation what we're trying to do, also with non-mission innovation countries, to work together with, yeah, which are in an early stage yet in the energy transition. So that's, but maybe we should talk a bit longer about it.
I want just to add that I think with Martin, we say that we would like to see if it does work, this activity. No? We are here, and let's see if there are more than 10 people. Since you are 60 and more, I think we could repeat and push on it, because there is need. Now we can, actually, we are experimental people, so we need to experiment that it works. And it seems that works, so I think we could push on it and even disseminate more, and hope to get, together with plans, also the involvement of government and agency. Because I think what clean energy transition has developed is a very unique and complicated in terms. So I would not repeat worldwide and try to replicate in a larger dimension. We have mission innovation for a slide, and I'd say cooperation, no? In terms of planification and identifying priorities, exchange. We need stronger collaboration, and we could use clean energy transition. It's very difficult to deal with 60 agencies, each one with their own priorities. Because also in our country, I'm from Italy, I'm from the Ministry of University and Research, there are two ministers, the research one and the development and industry minister. And they have completely different priorities, and it's not complicated, it's a complex, but I think we managed to do it. 2 years of preparation to do it, but it's ready. And that's why we want to share with you.
Yeah, echoing a bit on both Matthias and Francesco, we also in the CTP is building this knowledge community. And this knowledge community is something that is going to be one of our crown jewels, hopefully in the end, which is going to be a community not only for the partners in the CTP, nor the projects, but for everybody. It's open for everybody. We will have annual conferences where the community can meet and gather. And this is, again, open to everyone, so this is hopefully also one of the ways that we can spread the word about the CTP and get it out to live. And as Francesco says, this is we are still in the opening phase of the CTP as well. We are fairly new. This is our second joint call that we are doing this year. We have been running for just over 2 years, I believe. And so we are starting to get out there. We have built our own organization now. We have built the procedures that we then want to now share and incorporate more people. So this is taking part in events such like this, getting out, spreading the word, is going around in Europe as well, getting around, maybe even to the COP and so on. So we are getting out there, but we need to have something to show before we also can go out there on a full force. So yes. Are there any more questions? Yes, we have 2 questions here up front.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Kees Kwant, and I'm the mission director of the Mission Integrated Biorefineries. So I think it's a very interesting concept. I know it also from the past, from ERANETS and BESTEF and so on. But my question actually is, I have 2 questions. First of all, I have international partners who are not in CETP, like Canada, Brazil, so India also. So how can I convince other countries that this is an interesting approach for them? I see DOE is here, but for the other countries, what is the selling point to countries that are not yet a member? And the other point is, where does it fit, these biorefineries? Where does it fit in your program? Yes, in which TRI? I see certain lines, but this is not really clear to me.
Okay, I can answer to the second one. There is the TRI 3, which is fuel production. And so, especially so there are two. TRI 2 is for power production, and TRI 3 is fuel production. So most of the biorefinery in terms of fuel production goes in TRI 3. There is a coal modules on that. Is either for the production of hydrogen, either for the production of fuel. Actually, I think in the revision, the Commission asked for a much more bold point on biofuel, and next year probably we will a little bit take into account this, so you will have more space for biofuel. That's the point. I can say that what we can offer is the platform, and we can offer a joint process for definition of the goal and even for the evaluation. Every partner participating can offer their evaluators that evaluate, of course, not the project of their country, but evaluate the projects of the clean energy transition. And so you are fully involved. The point is that there are no other solution for multilateral, maybe there are some bilateral, but multilateral projects, platform with this degree of involvement. And if you are interested as a country to a high degree of involvement in common projects, I think clean energy transition is really what you need. But this is what I feel. The adding point is that what we did in Green Future Power Mission is going inside their mechanism. It was easy because I was part of both, so I could manage to integrate. For instance, the flagship project 2 of the Power Mission, which is related to the transnational, is the one preparing the demo phase. So you can use the clean energy transition for the project that then became the follow-up demonstration of your biorefinery. So you can also play on the different scale of implementation and TRL, working in one side for a specific, for maybe pilots, and on the mission for the demo and the large project. So you can also not only support the mission in terms of priorities, but also integrate what you do in the mission with a more, I would say, full chain development.
And I'll respond to your first question. So I'll go back into our history a little bit, because our engagement came through the AeroNet. That's actually when we first started getting involved, around 2018 or so. And it was based on relationships that we had bilaterally and in other multilateral fora with some of our colleagues from Norway and the UK. And those fora were mostly focused on carbon management. So Norway was a coordinator for accelerating CCS technologies. UK partners were part of that activity as well. So they approached us, started talking through like, okay, you know, here's what it's about, here's what how much flexibility it builds in with national requirements, here's the requirements on the international side. Here was the first call that they did. You know, they were very open about the process. So then we took all that information, came back, evaluated it, and said, you know what, like, let's try it. You know, our research community has always been interested in figuring out ways that we can do jointly funded projects. So we thought, okay, this might be a mechanism to do that. The easiest part of this is actually having the researchers talk to each other. That's the easy part. I mean, they're more than willing to figure out ways to collaborate. The hardest part is actually the funding agencies and making sure everything aligns. What are some of the key issues, like how do you deal with IP? What are the contractual agreements? But those things were hard and challenging, but we worked through it. And it was beneficial. So I think it's just really trying to understand what are some of the challenges that specific countries might face, and then figuring out, okay, what are the pathways to overcome some of those challenges? Because the research community, the interest and appetite from the research community is there to collaborate. It's just a matter of the funding agencies trying to figure out a pathway forward.
I would actually start with these countries that are already involved in mission innovation, but not yet in CETP. I would start with the question, why are they involved in mission innovation? Because for the same reasons, I think there is reason to participate in CETP. So, for example, I think CETP is a concrete way of getting your country's participants to activate in these same questions that we are trying to tackle in mission innovation. So I think it's one concrete way of activating your companies or research organizations or different kinds of organizations. So to get also others than just government involved.
I just wanted to say, we all know that the DOE is not an easy partner. But they are still in the program. And maybe that is for Brazil and the other countries a signal, hey, if the DOE is still there, it is feasible, it is an opportunity, maybe we should get in as well. And they have been very critical. Huh? Mark was already saying about the IP, about the administrative issues, and there were long talks about it, etc. But the things are solved. So I think that's really something to keep in mind.
Yes, and I also think that we actually do have a partner from Canada, but it's a regional partner from Alberta. So there is something going on in some of the countries. So it's just at a regional level. Also, we need to remember that this is a 7-year program for now. So it's something that we have to build up slowly. So we need to add more partners as we go along. And there is a plan to do that by being more outspoken at meetings like this and being active at other forums. So, for instance, when you have a meeting in the Mission Innovation, we are happily showing up to talk about our partnership, to promote it there. This is, yeah, so just invite us and we will be there. Next question, please.
Good morning. This is Ashwini Kumar Verma from NTPC. So my question to the panel is, I was just surfing the sites of Department of Energy USA. So there I got the data that around 17 crores of gigawatt power we receive from the sun continuously. And we need just 10,000 times of that, means very small fraction to meet all the energy requirement of this earth. So that was a very interesting data. And second data was there that 1% of all this solar energy which Earth receives gets converted into the biomass, gets fixed into the form of biomass. And by that data, we need only 1% what is gets fixed into the biomass. So there are biomass communities there which are constantly pushing for their technology because it is proven at the scale like Drex in UK. So they are also kept on telling for the years regarding the complete coal to biomass switching. And it is a very feasible solution, and for the torrid zone-lying country like India, it can be done very easily to achieve the goal of net zero. But I hardly see that this kind of solutions gets so much popularity on the forums. We talk about hydrogen, we talk about carbon capture, but we hardly see that biomass gets a very good place, and even though it can solve the problem in very economical manner. So what I just want to know from the panel, what is their take on that?
So is there a specific person from the panel?
I just want to say, maybe you have to talk a bit with your neighbor behind you, with Kees, and because he is an expert in the biorefineries and the biomass. And I think that would be the solution. And he asked already the question, where is the biorefineries, the biomass spot? But I think there's another thing which you're raising. Your question, I think it's happening also in other countries. Similar questions, etc., similar ideas. That's why we have to work together again.
I add only one point. We are trying to find the space for even hybrid technology, putting together biomass with electrolysis and so on. You know that there are interesting synergies for hydrogen production or for other fuel and so on. So I think we need also to go out from the single source and really face the energy system solution. And I think in this perspective, we are working hard in the clean energy transition.
It's nice that our chats before this session is reflecting here. I think when renewable energy technologies, clean energy is getting more and more visible in the system, we have to think indeed about integration. It's also why, from the European Commission, I take this hat now, we've been pushing to bring all the aeronets together and to make one big clean energy transition partnership, to have the flexibility, but also to push for the system integration. And that's also what you see in the different TRIs as well now in the CTP. And look, maybe it's not there this year, it can be there next year. But then we have to work together on that and develop a program and call as well for collaboration projects.
Yes, we have a question in the back.
Hi, this is Sankalp. I lead the R&D efforts at GPS Renewables. So we are a technology EPC company. In that perspective, I wanted to understand, does CETP has any mechanism to acquire these technologies developed under these collaborative projects? Because if a collaborative project between research organization within the country itself becomes a challenge in terms of acquiring the technology. So will there be any mechanism for companies to acquire these technologies as a part of CETP?
I don't know if can answer. I just, maybe you can also say something. You can always add to the project with your own money without asking money if your agency is not financing it. So you can participate if you find the money for participating to projects. Otherwise, you need, of course, the country or the agency of the country to participate. And so you have these two options.
And I think it's just talking to whoever those project partners are, and are they willing to license the technology, you know, and just having those discussions with whoever's working on those projects.
Agree. Means my question was for exactly that. Like talking to individual, like there are, if you see the structure, there will be three partners from 3 countries and 4th partner for the region. So any company like us, so approaching to everyone and addressing their concern about IP becomes difficult. So if CETP can have a common platform, that will be really helpful, and that will really help in propagating the developed technologies across the world. That's what I feel.
Can you repeat? I didn't get very well the questions. What was the point?
See, the point is, let's say, in the structure, there are 3 countries and 3 research organizations involved, and 1 regional research organization. Everybody will have their own processes, own approach to transfer the technology. For a company like us, getting involved with all these agencies and getting everybody on board or everybody on same page will become a difficult task, and it will prolong the process of technology implementation. If CETP, since they will have a good relationship with every one of them, if they can come up with a platform where we can get in touch and get a, let's say, common agreement, how it will get transferred.
Okay, the projects that are financed in clean energy transition requires at least 3 countries, no? And so different, and we are working to make the agency requirement compatible, no? And we have developed this 2-phase process. In the first phase, the effort for the projects is very small because there are 10 pages. And you start to develop the project with looking at the requirements of the agency that participate. And there is the main eligibility check. So you have not done an effort so strong, but the relation and the compatibility of the project with the agency requirement is already done there. And then there is the second phase of project development or project presentation, the full project, but the most of the eligibility check with the compatibility of the agency have been done. So you do the most of the effort when this eligibility check have been already performed. So you actually are almost sure that your project is already answered to the agency requirements.
Yes.
Thanks.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Yes, we have one down here.
Just to add shortly, I think it's also that we try to push administrations to work together, to learn from each other, to smooth the processes and to align the processes. I think that's something interesting as well. How do you solve the issues? How do you do it over there? And we are pushing a lot on trying to speed up the whole process as well. That Vasily knows, and that's Francesco. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say to that we at the moment are going through a lot of the details because we are making the funding agreements with the projects from the first call, and we are already now learning, okay, some countries are doing something and then other countries are doing something else, and we are trying to align these, and we have regular meetings where we are talking about, okay, is this required by law, or is it just something you do because you have always done it like this, and then try to see, okay, can we complement each other or bend a little towards each other as well?
And also timing. Normally for some of the steps, agencies were taking 2 months. Please speed up. Can you do it in 1 month? 1 week is maybe a bit too quick, but I think it's very important. Look, from the European Commission side, we said as well at a certain point, from the application to the grant agreement, we call it like that, it has to be done in 8 months maximum. And we do it now, for some cases already within 4 or 5 months. Applications, evaluations, contacting, all the project details, etc. So it's really a matter of willingness to do that, to speed up, to see where is the slack. And it's not somewhere for 3 weeks on a table because somebody has to look into that.
Yes. Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Mohit Bhatia. I'm part of an Abu Dhabi fund. So basically we are investing in tech and joint ventures. So we are investment and IP coming together. So is there an opportunity participating with CEPT on investment or the companies which are there as a JV? So just a thought, yeah.
No, it's the short answer. So you can, of course, always be a partner, but investing directly in the companies is something that is not done through the CTP. Do we have more questions? Otherwise, I have a follow-up question to Matthias, actually, because now you talked about the Commission's thoughts and ideas about uniting the EONets. Can you elaborate a little bit about this? So why did you push for the 9 EONets to become one big CTP partnership? What was the main thoughts and ideas from the Commission sides behind that?
Yeah, I mentioned already a bit earlier, but like in the field, there are so many different partnerships, and we had different projects, and you saw the slide with 8 and 9. We thought it should be more simpler, let's merge, but also to have similar procedures for each partnership, in fact, because ocean air, there was something on ocean, there was something on wind, on PV, and whatever, and they were all small, tiny little differences. By having one partnership, I think you really have one procedure for everything. It's similar. The researchers are in different fields. It's very good to have the same rules for in all the different fields. One of the strengths from the European Commission, we have our framework program. As somebody was saying, the nice thing of the framework program is that the administrative process is for each area the same. The procedure is for each area the same. The legal administrative requirements, and that for 7 years. That is far better than many national systems as such, because national systems, that could be each year a slight difference in whatever. No, we have been fixing it. And I think that's also in the CET partnership. By having this all together, it's one procedure for the next years. Simplification.
Yes.
And integration, but what I mentioned already earlier, because PV have to work with wind, thinking about the grid integration, about storage, all the issues which we are discussing in different side events here. Very interesting this morning as well. It brings together and it requires new knowledge, new insights, new technologies for the future.
Francesco?
Yeah, this point is very crucial for me. First, looking at the whole clean energy transition, you can realize what are the strategic issues. No? For instance, we are focused on storage for the next set plan initiatives, which is actually, you can take it from different perspectives, power, heat and cooling, hydrogen and fuel, and maybe you have multiple storage technology in the same site. But you can say the same thing for the power, for instance. We can have different integration between I've seen the last workshop of European Union between photovoltaics and concentrated solar power. But you can even, we developed the model just a little bit before the European Union, take into account this hybridization possible. Because actually you have PV thermal that can be developed just for thinking to hybridization. You can also think to PV and hydrogen. You can think to electrolysis and biofuel. Really, the possibility of hybridization and optimization take into account different technologies are wide and mostly unexplored because so far we have worked in silos, and we need to go out of the silos and look at the system.
Yes, thank you. If we don't have any more, we have a question down here. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for this interesting session. And for me, I'm Esther Buscher from SHV Energy. My colleague Rebecca Groen presented in yesterday's session on new technologies and policies for the biofuture. We're an off-grid energy provider, amongst others active in Italy, in the US, in Brazil, and India. And for me, the CET partnership was new. I've heard a lot about grid-related innovation and R&D, and therefore I was curious, are off-grid solutions and technologies also able to apply?
Can you repeat, sorry, what?
So basically, I think a lot of the, if you look at the examples that you had in the draft modules, a lot of them were grid-based or large scale, so to say. And our customer base, both domestic, industrial, and commercial, is actually in areas where the grid is not, which still actually is quite a significant part of the globe's population. And I was wondering if also projects, for instance, to scale up alternative fuels for off-grid use would also be eligible for CET programs.
Okay, the TRI one and the call module with mission innovation was mainly with grid. That's why we concentrate and focus on that. But you can find in different modules, you see the modules, there are plenty, even very wide technology. For instance, we financed this year a project on low photovoltaic from diffuse light, which is for internal use, so not linked to the grid and not linked even to the classic photovoltaic. So really you can propose the technology that you are developing. The modules are usually quite wide, different from the module that you usually find, the topic that you usually find in the European Union. Our scope is much more general, and so you fit different projects there. Also because we need to take into account 60 agencies that finance it. So we really cannot focus on one solution, on one perspective. The objective as really usually, in my perspective, for instance, in TRI2 is cost efficiency, so LCOE and efficiency. So if your own technology, you can demonstrate that you have increased the efficiency for their scope, I think it's eligible.
Okay, that's very encouraging. We'll dig into the decentralized solutions.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting question. The CTP has a strategic research and innovation agenda. They're developing this, and I'm not sure if it is in there, but it might be as well that a kind of a review on, hey, are there any topics missing which has a kind of an interest? And that's also with mission innovation, what we're trying to do is to find areas which needs much more attention. And that could be part of the outcomes of the discussions which there are in the working groups. I'm asking my people in my mission as well, okay, you're organizing a workshop on detection technologies for hydrogen, safety issues. It's very nice to see what's going on, but what are the needs? What are the research needs as such? And then we can try to get it somewhere in an agenda, and indeed in the national programs, and also in the CTP on an international level. But I think that's important as well in the collaboration already earlier, to think about what is our agenda for R&I, for the long-term future. What do we need in 2040 and 2050? Not only tomorrow, but the long-term perspective as well. And there we need as well the industry and the researchers to speak up and to let it know with a kind of a vision. And that's nice as well of this international collaboration. By speaking together, you're challenging each other. And that's what we need.
I think that even when we get more participants into CETP, it helps us figuring out these kinds of things as well. So we've been into our sort of European bubble where we think of problems that we think of as important, but there might be different kinds of problems in other continents. And I think this is something that we can, these new problems that we can find when we get new participants from different areas. And then I think we should actually then think about the problems that we have stated that these are the ones, because world moves on and other things become more focused when time moves on. So I think we should also have this opportunity to look at this again once in a while. But of course, regarding your question, I think, for example, you mentioned somehow industry also. So for example, going into TRI 6 with industries is possible. But generally speaking, I think that we should be able to revise these TRIs also once in a while.
Yes, so there is of course a plan to revise the topics of the TRIs along the way, and this also includes if there's new funding organizations taking part, then they come in and help revise the TRIs, but especially every year the call module. So as Katja says, if we have somebody from a different continent that has identified other issues than the normal European ones, so to say, then those will also be brought up in the call modules. So, yeah, we will try to include as much as possible. As Francesco also says, it's very general. So there's a lot of room for applicants to apply. Do we have any more questions? Otherwise, we are starting to be on the last 5 minutes, so we need to wrap it up. I don't see any more questions. Then I would like to thank my 4 panelists and thank all of the audience for being here. And please get in contact with us afterwards if you like. I have a slide here that also shows our social media where you are welcome to go in and follow us and contact us on. And you can see our webpage where you can see all the information about the partnership and the upcoming call to see if it's relevant and interesting to you. So yes, thank you to everybody and have a continued good conference and enjoy the weather.